What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Tapped In Indy Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, Heath Mulligan, joined by Nick McDaniel. Nick, it was a busy weekend, and we got a lot to get to on the show today.
That's an understatement, man. Yeah, we talked about like the topics we were going to cover. We're going to get a little what's the little mock drafts they joke about. They like the way too soon like awards
Right.
talk. That's what we're doing this week for sure. Little champions talk and a lot of other stuff. And look, there was a lot of action over the weekend. That's a whole other reason why they should sign up where.
That's right. You need to go to patreon.com/tappedOutPod. Sign up for a free account, and then every week you're going to get the Georgia Wrestling Spotlight, where we talk about the shows that just happened and the shows coming up. And if you become a paid member, even at the lowest level, you're going to get access to the show notes. And there has never been a week. If there's ever a week you're going to pay that little bit of money, it's this week, because the show notes are very, very heavy. Nick just mentioned the champions list. There's no way we can get to the entire list of all the champions in Georgia, but just for $1, you can get access to that, see all that. You'll see all the notes that we can't get to because we just have a lot to cover.
And hey, I wanted to mention, I had somebody email me and ask me, so the answer I wanted to be clear here was, I wanted to say it on the air was, yes, I have also moved the Raw, SmackDown, Dynamite, Collision, TNA reviews. They're all now at the $1 level. They're no longer part of the free. A lot of people are like, man, you're giving away a lot of stuff, for nothing. I was like, yeah, and I'm not, I didn't think it was $5 level,
right,
content. But so at the dollar level, you get those reviews and stuff as well that come out usually, the next day. It just depends on when the writer gets them into me. I usually kind of get them up pretty quick. Sometimes it's closer, sometimes it is lunch or whatever. Specifically on Tuesdays when we're recording, the Raw one goes up a little bit later because we're recording for the whole morning. Right. So,
and those show recaps, so helpful. And especially like if you're not able to see Raw or SmackDown or one of these other shows, boom, summarizes it really, really great. And when you're listening to our content, there's no better way to listen to our content than by using the Like Me Cozy Fit G earphones. And here's a little more about those right now.
Wrestling fans, if you're traveling, you're training in the gym, or you're just kicking back and you're listening to the Tapped In Indy podcast, you're going to need earbuds that work for you. And that's why we rock the Like Me Cozy Fit G1 earbuds like you see Nick wearing on this episode. These things are great. They get you more focused. The open-ear design cuts down low-frequency noise, keeps all the distractions away, so that way you can lock in on what you're trying to do. Thing comes with 4 mics, AI noise filtering, so the background noise just kind of disappears for you. So all of your calls are going to sound sharp and professional. These things are super lightweight. They're comfortable, man. You can see Nick wearing them all throughout this episode. They are only 0.2 ounces, so that way they're really designed to fit any ear shape. They don't really go in the ear. They're just out of the ear, so they fit really good, and that's something Nick's a big fan of. Man, they also give you 10 hours of charge, 30 hours total, and you get a quick 10-minute charge, man. Boom. You got a couple more hours that you can stay locked in to whether you're working on a podcast like me or you're just jamming to the music. Also, you can download the Light Me Connect app from the App Store or Google Play. It lets you customize touch controls, adjust your EQ sound, all that kind of stuff, so you can actually set these to your exact preferences. And because you're a member of the Tapped In family, you're going to get 10% off if you put your order on the official website. Promo code TappedOutPod. That link is in the show notes, and we will, of course, advertise it on social media. Again, 10% off on the official website with the promo code TappedOutPod, or run on over to Amazon. They're doing a limited time $20 discount coupon, and again, that link is in the notes as well. So remember, if you want sharp, top-tier sound, all-day comfort on your ears, customizable controls, man, don't wait. Go grab your Light Me Cozy Fit G1 earbuds today. Now back to the show.
Well, there you heard it, fans. Right there in the show notes, you can click, get your Like Me Cozy Fit earphones today. You can use that promo code, or you can get them through Amazon. Either way, Nick, you've been really enjoying those.
I have. I've been using them for everything, man. Like I said, it's way more comfortable for me than the Beats. They were just so heavy on, and then of course the hat, messing with it and all that kind of stuff. But I've been just walking around the house with them and just using them around the house, like lay my phone down. So if somebody calls, I can just boop, talk away and everything. So yeah, I'm actually digging them. So check them out again in the show notes. There's the website. Go to the website. I believe the sale ended as of recording. So check just the website using the promo code Tapped Out Pod and get the 10% off. So
sweet. Well, Nick mentioned some way too early awards talk. We are at the end. I think when you and I started this show, one of the reasons was it felt like awards talk didn't start till the end of October, and by then, so much had been forgotten a lot of times. And so we started the show to kind of keep track throughout the year. So we're at the end of quarter one for 2025. And we wanted to go through, and we want to call this the fun names edition of wrestling awards. And so some of these will sound familiar, but we wanted to kind of give our own twist on these. We'll start out with the Big Dawg of Georgia award for who we think is the best overall wrestler. And you and I had the same wrestler pop in our head first. And then we started second guessing ourselves. And that was Carly Bravo. Carly Bravo probably had the best second half of 2024, I think, of anybody. Really reinvigorated Atlanta wrestling entertainment and had some great matches in other places. And he just right now is just standing out above so many people, like just having great matches. But how many matches should you have to be in the running for this?
Well, so here's the thing. You talked about, like, hey, what happens when we open these Pandora's boxes and we just start thoughts pop into our head and we say them and conversations stretch long. And I literally just had one. Maybe in my brain, the reason it was so easy is because, we're talking about like wrestler, tag team, whatever. I don't know that it matters for overall wrestler. The way I separate the two, because we don't. They have a male performer, female performer, and overall wrestler.
Right.
My interpretation overall is like literally who has the biggest impact on Georgia. Mm-hmm. I don't really care if he he wrestles half the time as a singles, half of the time as a tag, blah, blah, blah. I don't get into look, there's a technical wrestler award for a reason. This isn't about a guy this guy can, but I'm saying in my brain doesn't say this guy has to be the best technical wrestler, whatever. He has the best matches or whatever. I will get into that debate later. Overall wrestler to me, that's why I like the Big Dawg of Georgia award. It's because male, female, doesn't matter, whatever. To me, this award is who's the biggest impact on Georgia wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
That's why right now my answer is Carly Bravo. He's multiple promotion singles champ, multi-promotion tag team champion. I mean, so I don't know that anybody has made a bigger impact on Georgia wrestling than Carly Bravo. Now we're creeping up, by the way. We're getting closer to it being a full year, not calendar year, but a full year, and he's still on this run. So I have always said, I think somebody's got to come in and take that award from him versus, somebody had a nice little 2-month run, so now they're the guy. No, I still think at this moment. Now, there's a great debate on who we think that guy can and could be. And look, we're gonna in the Georgia Wrestling Spotlight, I'm going to start pleading a case for another guy who's running Carly. He's chasing him down. So that's another conversation as well.
Yeah, very well said. I think you're right. When Carly Bravo is someone you bring in to make an impact on your card, because if he's on your show, he's either a champion, singles or tag champion. You're not bringing in Carly Bravo to be a curtain jerker. You're bringing in Carly Bravo to be in a featured match against a featured talent to elevate your show and elevate your talent. And that's a very short list of people in Georgia who are able to do that. And right now, as of 10:02 a.m. on Tuesday, March 25th, when we're recording this. Carly Bravo, he's that guy, and that's why he is the big dog of Georgia. Nick mentioned, there's best male, best female. Let's talk about the Queen of the Scene award. Who do we think is the best female performer so far? And this was we talked about her a lot last week. Someone who holds multiple women's titles in Georgia, and that's Hyena Hera.
Listen, if that's a measuring stick, right? That's like who's got all the gold, and look, there are other women's champions out there, but we've made the case for where did these other women wrestle? Here's a case where Hyena Hera has multiple, like you said, multiple promotions championships. By the way, inaugural champions, at PCW. She defeated who I thought was the female wrestler of the year last year, Angelica Risk. She didn't win, by the way. I'm being clear. Like, that's who I thought it was. That was my opinion. And Hyena Hera took her title from her at night, as the Nightmare Factory champion. So I think if you're, again, because now we are talking the calendar years, if we're talking winning those, I think right now, look, I get it. Somebody's going to try to make a case there. Well, she's got more titles and more promotions and wrestles, she's the top at multiple promotions. Like, I would argue that case is that it's her.
Yeah. I definitely feel when you talk about the overall best female, best male, even best tag team, those awards to me in particular require multiple promotions. Like, you can't, like, someone could be the best technical wrestler and only wrestle for one or two promotions. But to me, if you want to be the best of the best, you gotta be at multiple places. You gotta be doing lots of things. And Hyena Hera,
listen, I'm not trying to back up, but put an exclamation on that statement when you're talking about overall wrestler.
Yes.
I just think if you wrestle at one promotion, with all due respect, you cannot be the overall wrestler of the year and wrestle at one promotion. Because I think of it, like I said, my description is that same thing. Look, I'm going to make the case for the female performer as well. If you're the best in the state, you're not working at one place. Like, to be the best in the state, you have to be covering some territory. And again, it's not a knock on the people that do that. It's just saying, I personally, if I were doing awards, you can't win that and be at one place.
Yes. Could not agree more. Speaking of the technical wrestler, otherwise known as, and some of these names we might be changing, the Wrench Wizard Award. I like that. The guy who's can get under the hood. Vari Morales continues to wrestle people of all shapes and sizes. You just saw a match with him that we're going to talk about on the Spotlight. And Vari Morales just goes out and does his thing. And part of being the Wrench Wizard is you elevate people. You make them look better than maybe they actually are.
I think a lot of times people get in the ring and they try to prove what they can do. There's, I think, the biggest flaw in that system. Like, sometimes when I think about technical wrestler, I look at that. That it's like, okay, well, he can do cool stuff, but his opponent looks horrible because he's not really. Does that make sense? Like,
yes.
So that's kind of the why.
Yeah, Vari, he might move out of that underrated, underappreciated thing if we keep appreciating him so much. Next, let's talk about the Power Up Award. This is the most improved wrestler, someone who's really made some strides. And I want to throw out this name, and then I want to talk about. I want to compare this award to the most improved player in the NBA. And so far, Christian Taylor, who, was one of the top, guys looking at Rookie of the Year last year. He's come out this year. He's wrestled in bigger matches. He's won his first title. And he continues to wrestle in a ton of places. And he's already said he's trying to get in more shows and matches than he did last year. And so anyway, uh, anyway, I think Christian Taylor is one of those guys who gets it, and he understands the work he's got to put in. And so far, it's definitely paying off, especially here in year 2.
And when we talk about most improved, literally, like it's supposed to be, what did we see, a year ago to the end? So obviously, my statement is the reason why this one, what's the word I'm trying to say? It's going to slide all year long because, like, as of now, I look back as a year ago. How did he look? Well, when you get to December, it's like, how did he look in December of 2024
Right.
versus 22? So all year long, that barometer is moving. So obviously, we're doing it for today versus a year ago today. And if you had seen him wrestle, like, he has taken every opportunity, and by the way, been rewarded it now that he's got a title under his belt.
Yes.
Currently, let's be clear, he's currently a champion. So I think we're going to see even continue to that because he's willing to go from a guy who was like, hey, he knew where he was a year ago, took every opportunity, and calls them learning experience. He had a learning opportunity, to then all of a sudden, like, wait, did I read that right? Did he beat Zach Buchanan at Bullpen?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, you did. Did he really capture the title up there? Yes, he did. And you're starting to see wins, and there's a huge opportunity that I want to see Saturday that it would cement it in my brain. He has a match with Jacob Ashworth at Georgia Championship Wrestling. Imagine if Christian Taylor picks up a win against Jacob Ashworth, at Georgia Championship Wrestling. That's kind of showing up. We just think this is that's how far I think this kid's come in a year. So, that's my vote right now.
So in the NBA, I've been an NBA fan all my life. And what I've noticed is that typically the most improved award goes to a guy that maybe one year he's playing 8 minutes a game. And then obviously if you're playing 8 minutes and you're averaging 4 points and now you're playing 30 minutes a game and you're averaging 18 points, your statistics improved but maybe your skill didn't improve. So in the NBA, it's been more about opportunity, but I do think as you get more opportunity, if you get more playing time, if you wrestle more matches, your skill is going to be improving as well. I think that's one of the reasons Christian Taylor's progression has been so remarkable. Is in 1 year, Nick, think about this. He wrestled more matches than some guys that have been wrestling in Georgia for 10 years. He did that in 1 year. And so if you're a Georgia wrestler out there and you're mad that this kid might be leapfrogging you, maybe you need to get out more. That's just my thought on the whole thing. Let's talk about the duo that do it award, the tag team of the year. This was a pretty good conversation. I don't even know if it was a debate with us. There's two teams I think that really stand out as we were talking about this. And that's the Infantry and the Hierarchy. Both are champions at multiple promotions, and both, again, you are bringing them in to elevate a team, to elevate a storyline. The Hierarchy and the Grapplers, if that feud is not over, if they continue to go, that could easily have been, and I can't even remember, was that a feud of the year candidate last year?
I'd have to honestly go back and look, to be honest with you, but I can't remember off of the top of my head, but should have been. Let's put it that way, right? If it wasn't, it should have been. Guess what? Your boys got stuff handy. Well, I thought I did. I don't even.
Yeah, I can't even remember either. Here's the question, Nick, while you're looking that up. Who's going to book the Infantry versus the Hierarchy?
Right?
Maybe that's a way to settle
that's gotta happen. That's got to happen at Southern Honor, right?
Right. And dude, there's so many different things you could do with that. You could bring in the Kenway. So who's the infantry bringing in for their third guy? Dude, you could do a whole year of a feud of that,
Yeah.
of infantry and hierarchy.
Look, and I get it. So the great debate right now would be, does the infantry count, right? We have the same debate
Right.
about Carly Bravo. Oh, well, they're on TV, so they shouldn't count. Okay, if they count, they're right there in the mix. If for whatever reason you tried to argue that the infantry doesn't count because they're assigned talent, which I get it. I'm open for that debate.
Mm.
Then it's got to be right. It's got to be the hierarchy at the moment, right?
Right.
That's the reason there's
think.
the debate. That's the debate. Like if they count, they're in there in the debate. If infantry doesn't count in your book, then I got to say it's the hierarchy at this point. That's just my take, because they're in power. They're a power player everywhere they are. That's the thing. I mean, whether it's, and think about this. This is kind of why I stress it. Next level, they're down there.
Mm-hmm.
That's in that corner. They're in the other corner over at Premier. Then you've got, Atlanta Wrestling Entertainment. Then you've got at Southern Honor. So they're spreading literally across the state. They're players everywhere. So, and look, we're not saying there's not other teams that can get there. We just need to see them get there. Like right now, that's who we pick at the top.
Right. And I think there's definitely, we talk about the tag team roster at Turnbuckle, how it's been growing, and interested to see what they do once the transition of one fall's complete. I mean, there's definitely some teams there that could start making a case.
So, do we need to make the same case? Because we talked about this. I'm repeating myself. I'm fully aware of this, because we're kind of at the bottom of where we're talking about teams and technicals and females and overalls. Like, I think where people get hung up on is the concept of like, oh, this is the best technical team in Georgia, or what, they're the best wrestlers, in-ring wrestlers. And I'm like, yeah, I don't think that matters as much for these categories as who's making an impact.
Yes.
Who's going to make a play? Like, I'll save that for another show. Sorry. I'm going to leave that one alone.
Let's talk about the hottest territory in Georgia. And we think right now that's Action Wrestling. The number of shows they've been running, the crowds they've been running, they've kind of moved outside of their home base of Tyrone. The Noon and Nightmare shows, huge crowds there. They drew another big crowd over the weekend that you were at. And Action still doesn't seem to be getting the love that we think they should be getting from a lot of places.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I went to the Noon and Nightmare show, 600 or so. I just went to the Madras Middle School. Gyms are hard to count when they have the bleachers out. It's like, it's one thing when you have chairs, but when it's all bleachers, it kind of gets so there was, somebody was like, if you'd have told me it was 450, I'd have said, okay. If you'd have said it was 525, okay. So I was like, somebody asked me, I was like, look, it was somewhere between 450, 500 is what my guess was, give or take, maybe closer to 500.
Right.
But I'm really bad at counting, and I don't think the number quite matters at that point. When you're at that level of a crowd, I'm like, does it really matter whether it's 475 or 500? I don't think so. And look, by the way, we want to put it in here. Like, we had a conversation that we brought up Turnbuckle, right? Okay, well, they're going away, so they can't really be. Can one fall become this? Can they become the player that Turnbuckle was? 100%, because I think they're the same. We get it. We know what it is. So, right. Yes, I think that probably by Q2, they're probably in the conversation. But it's, but then there's, when we get into promotion, we always have the same argument. It depends on what you're into. Some of the best storytelling stuff that they've done over at Southern Fried. Look, you could have a case for virals back and drawing hot crowds. You could make the case for, look, Coastal's your reigning champion.
Yeah.
So we got to get them into the, like, hey, they're doing some really good storytelling stuff down too. That's why they're doing so well. All of the things Southern Honors does well, they do better than everybody else.
Right. Yeah.
But it's more of a casual show. It's not, in my opinion. I know people try to say it's not, but it is. Action, though, with what they do, I don't think they bring in more out-of-state talent, whatever. Look, if Disruptor comes back, they jump into that case that they bring into some of the states, out of state talents that nobody else uses. But as of this moment, Disruptor hasn't run this year.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, I think Action locks it down because they are different than on a lot of levels, different places they run, talents they use, some really cool stuff or whatever, and even get creative. I'm going to really hype a match that we're going to talk about on this Georgia Wrestling Spotlight. So make sure you're signed up for that free account on Patreon. Absolutely, Action stood out at Madras Middle School. There was some stuff that I saw that was like really, really cool, and kind of was like, this is why you should come see those.
Yeah, I think just a lot of really great things happening in Georgia right now, which leads me to the next one. You touched on this just a little bit. This is the Pin Game is Strong Award for the best booker. And you and I were talking about this. Right now, there are so many promotions who have so many layers in their storytelling. One we'll mention, let's give some love to Squared Circle, aka Apocalypse Championship Wrestling. They're doing the whole angle where, Apocalypse is taking over, John Johnson's taking over. And typically when you see the heel person, the heel general manager take over, you're expecting one thing. They've given us something totally different that makes sense. And we'll talk about that a little more on the Spotlight show. But another thing they've done is that is certainly your top story, but underneath it you've got the Rick Page, Christian Taylor. You got that storyline. You got the tag team title. So multiple layers, multiple storylines going. And whether you're talking about, Southern Fried or Southern Honor or Action, so many different places are doing such a good job of it. It's not just about one thing, but multiple things are happening.
Yeah, I mean, without a doubt. Like, I think this booking across the state is stronger. Would you argue it's stronger than it's ever been?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't argue against it because I think it's quantity and quality are both up in Georgia.
Yeah, I think there was a wave of, I think, minds that kind of came. Like, you still have your Todd Sextons who do great at what he does, still telling those stories. But then we're seeing stuff that's really unique. Where like younger guys that were wrestlers, Dylan, Southern Honor, Zach and that crew down there.
Yep.
Look, they're smart. They've got they got some tools in their toolbox that they're dipping in some veteran, brain power as well. And I think that's just it between, look, Bullpen's doing some old school, because Bull Buchanan, he's been around for a long time, knows wrestling. And so I just think it's really cool and unique to see there's two schools there. There's very much an old school, my power. But let's, and I say that, but then I come back, somebody like Dylan Freimeyer sat under the learning tree of Jake the Snake Roberts, Scott Hall, Dallas Pay. I mean, so, like they've got a lot of, I don't know that now look, let's be blunt. There's a lot of junk out there. There's throw-in shows and look, there's nothing wrong, by the way. That's the problem. There's nothing wrong with saying, hey, we put on shows. We don't do a lot of stories. We just put on really good shows and we draw. That's cool. But we love a good story. And I think that's why this is one of our favorite categories. And it's also why it's one of the toughest ones to judge for us, because we had the conversation about Apocalypse Pro Wrestling, Squared Circle, call it what you want. You at one point had a question about it. Like, well, does this right? And then I'm like, no, but they're doing this layer. And it's like, oh yeah, they're literally trying to explain, something that we had a issue with in the past.
Yeah.
And that oh yeah, but no, they're handling it this way. And you're like, oh, that's smart. So yeah, I think it's really cool that these guys are really putting in the time and effort and focusing on the stories, because me personally, you can put on the best matches. Nobody cares. In the long stream, it doesn't matter It's one of the reasons why we're going to have in a couple segments from now, we're going to have a whole case of why we struggled with another category.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, absolutely. So everybody keep up the good work. And listen, in a show like this, we know there are names we have not mentioned. It is not, we don't mean to be disrespectful, just a lot. Like the quantity is so high. It's impossible to give everybody their flowers
Well,
at
listen,
one
and
time.
we're going to encourage it. By the way, like, yeah, you brought it up, so I'll go ahead and throw it in here. That's what the tappedoutpod@gmail.com email is for. Like, we get it. There's a lot of stuff out there we didn't see. We're reporting on it much. I got spreadsheets built. I mean, we got multiple spreadsheets trying to cover all of this stuff. But if there's something that you see, like we always say, tappedoutpod@gmail.com, send it. If it's a match and you got a video, send it. Promo, send it. That's fine. That's what those things are for.
Yes.
Because we can't see it all. We're just telling you like what we've seen, heard, and like, been given. Like, there are people out there, by the way, that are at least sending us stuff saying like, hey, check this out. We look at it and we file that in our thing here and we talk about them here and there. So, but yeah, by the way, this whole thing is like, there's a reason they're like way too soon award talk. There's still a
Right.
whole lot of stuff to sift through for the next 9 months.
Think about this. There were, at this time last year, there were promotions we were talking about as potential promotions of the year that are no longer around. And so, I mean, you and I just, 3-4 weeks ago, about every week we were talking about how Tannery Row Ale House, our favorite wrestling venue maybe ever, no longer there. No longer. Things change so fast. And speaking of change and people that can adapt to change and make things happen, it's the Hustler of the Year award. This is for the promoters who are grinding it out to build a show, to build brands. Two guys I want to talk about: Scott Barnett with Turnbuckle and One Fall, who continues. I mean, they're booking 50 plus shows this year easily, even with the brand switch. And they're not, they don't have a night where they draw 25. They're drawing consistently really good numbers, and Scott is kind of like, he is the engine behind all of that.
Right. Their Monday show that you would think like would be the show that was going to be the struggle. Their last show did, I think it was like 75, 85 or it wasn't whatever. But they were in the wheelhouse there. If I went to like 2 or 3 in a row where they were easily over 100 or whatever, on a Monday show in a brewery in Watkinsville. I mean, their Friday show there does extremely well. But now between, I got to make sure I can say all these cities. The ones that I think I got it. Your Watkinsville show, the McDonough show, the now announced, the coming venue, that they've announced or whatever. Think about that. That's, to me, that's why we kind of were talking about these. These guys, James Hunter had to deal with a scenario where a weather changed a stadium show and he reruns it and he still pulls off into the high 300s, wasn't it, or whatever.
Yes.
Scott Barnett, loses a venue, bam, he's got another within a couple of weeks. He's like, hey, we've got this replaced. He ran the show that I was at Saturday. It was a great experience. Boom, potential, maybe, who knows? Like, that's the promoter part. Like, I think a lot of people are getting out there like thinking like your crowd determines the promoter of the year. Does it though? Like, that's always been my question. Look, and here's the part. We've always had this, and I'm not gonna get into this segment of the award talk of like, what does it mean? This is what it means to us. This is not what the Georgia Wrestling History Awards, how they're determined and what the metric is for those. Because I can bluntly tell you, I don't know what their metric is for those awards.
Right.
I'm just telling you, for us, it's a guy to me, the promoter of the year is a guy that gets thrown a monkey wrench of like, hey, your venue shut down, literally, boom, a couple of weeks before. Okay, boom, by the time that show was supposed to happen, we got another venue to replace it. By the way, we might have replaced it with 2.
Yeah.
That's the ride they're getting the love. Can this change by the end of the year? We're going to repeat this a million times before we're done. Yeah, these can change. But as of right now, these 2 guys deserve to be in the conversation.
Yeah. What James Hunter has done with a promotion that runs on Thursday nights. They ran that stadium show on a Thursday night, drew 300 plus, a great crowd. James Hunter's built great, great partnerships with local news stations, things like that. Hanson won the award last year, and I think again that wasn't based on crowd, that was based on hustle.
Let me tell you. Here's my Hanson love. By the way, Matt Griffin, we're going to get there because I think he deserves. That's the thing. He deserves to be in this game. I just talked about. Like, he did a Noonan show. He does the Tyrone. He does the Fayetteville. He did a show in Macon over the weekend, for crying out loud. But why does Hanson belong in there? Look, I hope he understands and appreciates the love of what I'm about to say. I think their first show, it was like 20, 25 people there. It was, a lot of people were ready to stick a fork in them. Oh, they're done. Ha, ha, ha. Because that's what, jackwagons like to do. Well, guess what? Now, they packed, literally the last show, from my understanding, they were at the limit. Like, they couldn't put any more people in there.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody's like, well, then, here's my argument. If you're drawing 150, multiple shows in a row, then you ask yourself, like, I know we like this venue, but do we need to get a bigger one? Like, that's a good problem to have when you start asking yourself, do we need a bigger venue? Because of the connections, like you said, with the news channel, with the community, the businesses he's partnered with. Does it sound like he paid attention to another guy that does very similar? Yeah, he probably did. It's one thing to not just talk to somebody, but how about you implement the things that you learn from those people? And Hanson's clearly learned that. And you can kind of see why we're getting into, maybe Gary Lamb has influenced me too much in the sense of when you talk about a promoter, hustler, whatever you want to call it, old school wrestling promotion's not what I see anymore. It's somebody that's getting out there trying to grow and push and hustle and that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And again, not any disrespect to any of the other promoters. That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is we just want to appreciate the guys that we can see it, and because you can see all of the little things extra that they do. That's all we're saying.
Yes, I think maybe we need to have the anti-hustler of the year award. People we need to see more hustle out of. Anyway, we probably don't need to go there. Let's talk about the Mouthpiece Magic Award. This is, I think there's one guy running away with this because for multiple reasons. Number one, he deserves it. And then nobody, no one else is doing it better than him. But we're just not seeing as many managers this year as we've seen in the past. But Matt Griffin right now is the standard for being that mouthpiece, whether it's Gunnar Miller or whether it's at other shows representing, action in IWTV. Matt Griffin is showing up everywhere and always showing up and showing out.
Yeah. I mean, look, we made the case that this probably could have been your winner for last year's.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, probably would have. I don't know. Last year was really a tough race. And look, Jakes has stepped away for a little bit. Here's my window. When his return is his return in time?
Mm.
That's the question. Like, I don't want to hear, again, with all due respect to the parties, Donald Jakes can't return in August, have a great run, and then win.
Right.
Because that's what, again, you brought it up. That's kind of why we did this. Like, one of the reasons why we were looking at this format was kind of going like, okay, if Matt Griffin had knocked it out of the park for 12 months, can a guy come in 4 or 5 months and, be like, oh, I'm the best because I was the hottest. And that's what, our recency bias, influences all. So Jakes, if he's going to defend his title as manager of the year, Mouthpiece Magic Award winner, then he's got to come back sooner than later, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. The match that slapped the hardest, aka the best match award, and this was we're kind of going through, and the match we landed on so far this year was Sauronaro and Caleb Conley from Atlanta Wrestling and Entertainment. But I said to you, I think that's the best match I've seen this year. But when I was watching that match, I didn't think this is match of the year. A very good match, had the good heat, had it was a good match all the way around. Two guys in there know what they're doing.
Can I
But
ask you a question? Is this a
yeah,
definition thing here? Is it the best match or is it the best wrestling match? Because that's the defining thing, the thing I think that differentiates us our answer here. It's the best wrestling match we saw this year, and it could be argued. But the
yes,
best match, again, maybe it has to have some ramifications, some long-term effects, some storyline, whatever. There are others. So the question became: we asked ourselves, have we seen it yet?
yeah, and I don't think we have. And I just put it here in the notes. There's three, I'd say four S's. A match of the year has got to have stakes. There's got to be something at stake, and I didn't really feel that with Sal and Caleb. It's got to have some skill. Now, whether that's technical skill or that's knowing how to throw someone into a cage or the skill of getting the crowd, whatever. Then I think there's style, and then I think there's stipulations. I think when uh, the match last year, the last man standing match with Hakeem Young and Flying Fro Walker, it had all of that stakes. And so I think if you talk about Sal and Caleb, lots of skill, maybe even style, but didn't really have stakes or stipulations.
As we sit here and discuss it, I could make a case for if you'd ask me if you put like I had to pick one, I might choose the Eliminator Gauntlet at Southern Fried that they just pulled off a couple shows ago, where it was because they think about it, it was very much stipulations, very much skill. They pulled off a match that's very difficult to pull off. It was a long match by design because of the Eliminator concept, and then the stakes were if the Sexton Alliance loses, they have to disband and can't be together. They win, then they get some matches down the road. But even then, maybe that's my answer. I honestly, if you ask me, maybe it's Southern Fried's Elimination Gauntlet match, the Eliminator Gauntlet, I think is what they called it. Maybe that's it, because at least it meets more of the criteria. The best wrestling match we probably saw, you could make the case for Sal and for Caleb Conley.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to argue with it. Yeah, I think definitely that gauntlet match at Southern Fried fit all those. You definitely had stakes. You had the skill. You had the style. You had the stipulate. I mean, it hit all of them. Again, what we're really trying to say is it's early and it's still up for debate. Like we don't know if we've seen. I think what was it, 4 or 5? Several years ago, Joe and Huck had that dog collar match in January, and it stood the test of time. It stood, the whole year, and that match had everything,
Can I tell
and it
you a match?
deserved it.
I just thought of a match. Hold on, I'm going to
Uh-huh.
ask you this one. It may. How crazy is I'm about to give you a match that I think that potentially grows into be this, because I think the stakes were high, the story, but it's the story. I think there's more story to be told. Is the Alexander Lev versus Joe Black match at Southern Honor, because we saw the early ramifications of what's happened out of that, about the how the fans have completely flipped for Lev, and how so maybe, I know this sounds crazy, maybe that match grows on to become that match, because think about this, if Lev goes on, has a tremendous run, and he ends up capturing gold, is that the launching point? So as hindsight, we look back at that match even more so than we do right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're still feeling the ramifications of that match.
Yeah, could be.
That's a very good point. Very good point. Speaking of Lev, the mic drop moment of the year award, best promo. The best one I've seen or watched is Alexander Lev at the Jimmy Rave Cup. That closing promo, so good, where he kind of had everybody in the palm of his hand, and then he crapped all over them.
Yeah, the 100% emotion, I think, probably was kind of you could see even the genuine how much it meant. But then to take, like you said, that, basically it's almost like he hugged the crowd And when he was hugging them, he just stuck the knife right in their side.
Yes.
But I mean, and then when it happened, I think I messaged you as soon as I watched it and said, I think I just watched, what is up the promo of the year up to this point. I think I just saw it. And you were kind of like, yeah. And then you watched it and you're like, yeah, you're probably right. So this one wasn't the only other one. And it was funny that I actually said, I think this one's right up there with it. Was I kind of waffled on, I could not remember what month it happened in, was the Joe Black promo towards Judas. That one's there. I'm telling you. And look, I should have completely, I'm just trying to remember.
Was that at the end of last year, though?
That's what I'm trying to remember, because I was trying to remember, like, what show did that happen. And I was like, for the life of me, I could not remember.
Yeah, I think that was a finalist last year.
Oh, yeah. I think you're right.
Anyway, those are our way too early first quarter of the year award thoughts for the Tapped In annual awards, which are unofficial at this point in time.
They are so unofficial. And I think we're running over on time. I'm going to do something pretty on the air. You're probably, if you're watching the notes, I just killed something. So we'll go ahead and move on to it, because we are going to run out of time. There's no way we get to all of this. So,
yeah, let's talk about something that happened. I believe this was last Thursday. Dynamic Wrestling Association. Effy was there defending the GCW title, and none other than Bryce Cannon came into the ring and attacked Effy from behind with that famous paddle. And now it's Bryce Cannon who's going to be getting a shot at the GCW World Heavyweight title coming up on May the 2nd. Has anyone ever come back from an injury in Georgia wrestling and made such a big impact so quickly than Bryce Cannon has in the last 3 weeks?
No, and that's kind of why I cut the other topic out, which we'll cut it next week or something like that, folks. It'll be better. Yeah. But this one had to be discussed because of what we were just discussing. We talked about Carly Bravo as the guy. Listen, if Bryce Cannon's wrestling Effy, Bryce Cannon is in stuff with Carl Anderson and Matt Hardy. He's getting clotheslined by JBL. He's in Top Story at Coastal Imp. I'm like, guys, look, he's pleading his case, guy. I think he made his action debut on Sunday. I mean, guys, the guy's making his case literally to be the big dog guy quick. Luckily, he's come back in plenty of time. He's got all the opportunity in the world. Now, he's chasing Carly Bravo, in my opinion. But like I said, if there's a guy that I think's got the potential to chase him down, by the way, that's the match we all want. Any promoter, we're going to bang this drum until I see it. Well, Bryce Cannon versus Carly Bravo is the match we want. That's just my opinion. So, and every promoter out there should be trying to pull the trigger on getting this match to happen and be first.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, in a perfect world, Bryce Cannon and Carly Bravo would wrestle 3 or 4 times before the end of the year.
Listen, and I know, look, I understand that Bryce Cannon is doing everything in his power. He's trying to prove to the world he's one of the best singles wrestlers on the in Georgia and beyond at this point. But can you imagine an exotic youth infantry feud that spills over into singles titles, where you've got Zach versus Sean Dean and Bryce versus Carly, vice versa, mix all the pieces? I'm like, dude, if you're a promotion, then you can pull this off, dude. There's so much fun and there's so much magic to be made with all 4 of those, parties kind of going around. I just think that's just a no-brainer.
Here's a question, Nick. Are the infantry being underutilized right now?
I don't know, man. That's a hard one to say, considering they hold multiple tag team titles.
Right.
But I could be. But here's the thing: I understand. I get what's going on. I understand what's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
With it.
Yes. Yeah.
So Carly's the guy. So look, if you're giving me my choices, yes, I'm probably going to give me Carly Bravo and Bryce Cannon. But I just think there's a little intricacies of hey, we've got this story, we get this match, and then guess what? What if? Because look, by the way, they both play baby faces and they both play heels all over the state. So you can go either way. What if this match happens and if Bryce is your baby, what if Shawn Dean cost him the match? What if, it's the other way around and Zach cost Carly the match? And then we start putting the chess pieces on the board and we can play this thing out. I think there's a lot of fun to be had there. I just don't know
right
who's going to pull this off.
I think when I say underutilized, not necessarily match wise, but everything you just said, there's angles and stories that could be told that it's like no one's even thinking of.
Well, listen, in all fairness, we get it. They're busy. Stuff happens, and their schedules are really hard to manage. We'll discuss that a little bit on the Georgia Wrestling Spotlight. Some things that happened this past weekend, et cetera. So I get it. It's a little all over the place. It's kind of difficult to guarantee, and maybe that's some promotion's hesitations. Me personally, if I had a promotion, which obviously we don't, if I had one, I would probably take the risk and try to build on it.
Yes, absolutely. Anyway, circle your calendars there. May 2nd, Bryce Cannon gets his shot at the GCW World Title held by Effy. That's going to be huge. And hey, we talked about matches of the year. That could be. That match is taking place in Georgia, so it's eligible to be match of the year.
Apparently, yeah.
Let's this is why you want to get the show notes. This is why you want to pay for Patreon, and that is our current champions list, which is a page. It is more than a page on its own of show notes. I don't even know. Oh my goodness. Let's just talk about a few of these. Tim Bosby continues to reign supreme there at Action Wrestling. You saw that young man live and in color.
He's got an exhausting schedule he's running right now. That's just it, man. He's wrestling all over. I mean, think about this. I saw him on Friday defend that title. He had a match on Sunday defending that. I mean, it's like he's not – that's the thing. He's not defending that Action title one time a month.
Yeah.
No disrespect to the guys that are. I mean, what my point being is just saying he's not.
Yes.
Like he literally did it twice in a weekend, much less, he's doing it multiple times in a month. The good thing is kid's young.
Yes.
Got lots of energy, lots of strength, and his frame's built to, endure, with his background. Obviously, he's a tough kid. I say kid, by the way, because I'm old. But look, by the way, let's not forget the pairing. He's got somebody in his corner in Dylan Hales that's helping him along the way. Again, that there's a whole conversation to that on the Georgia Wrestling Spotlight. But that's why Tim Bosby deserves, look, by hook or by crook, he's the guy. He's the man right now in Action Wrestling.
Bill James was a big baseball guy, and he would just have this scouting report on every player in Major League Baseball. And Tim Bosby in his corner has Dylan Hales. And if you were having somebody write you a scouting report on just about every independent wrestler in the Southeast, that would be Dylan Hale. Dylan Hale's probably one of the most knowledgeable people in wrestling, and that's who's guiding you. And he knows everybody's strengths, everybody's weaknesses, and what we'll get into the spotlight. And now he's not just the brains in the operation. He's doing other things. Anyway, that's a pairing that is going to go far this year.
Yeah.
We've mentioned Carly Bravo. He is the champion at Atlanta Wrestling Entertainment hierarchy there. Excuse me. He is the undisputed
unified Georgia Wrestling Crown heavyweight champion.
And then the hierarchy of the undisputed unified Georgia Wrestling Crown tag team champions. And Alexander Lev, need to add this one. Alexander Lev is the
junior heavyweight champion.
Is the junior champion. Let's talk about, Bullpen Pro Wrestling. Mentioned them earlier. Cody Wyndham is their Bull of the Woods champion. And AJ Black, Jaden Bain, the Standard, their tag team champions. We're just kind of skipping through here. Coastal Empire, Hunter James is their heavyweight champion, winning that just several weeks ago. Hakeem Young continues to be what's that? What's their secondary
Coastal
title?
Chaos.
Coastal Chaos is right here. And then Exotic Youth are currently the tag team titles, although they're going to be challenged by the Good Hand coming up. We mentioned Effy at Dynamic Wrestling Association. Grayson Pierce is their heavyweight champion, and Nathan Mowry is now their ultraviolet champion. Kraken Pro Wrestling, Justin Case is their champion, but he's facing this gauntlet of the Pieces of Eight challenge in this tournament that's happened, and he's going to have his hands cut out for him. We mentioned Lev earlier. Lev is the heavyweight champion at New Legacy Pro. And again, the Standard. Hey, maybe we need to bring them up. They're champions at multiple promotions. Next Level Championship Wrestling, they've got a show coming up. They're in the process of crowning all their champions brand new. We'll talk about Phoenix. Wade Adams is the PWE champion. Aaron Berry, still your Savannah River Brewing Company champion. More on that in the next show. Nick is, I mean, again, more than a page of notes. Nick, any others on here we need to, obviously Southern Fried, Sal Renaro. Who did you have Sal Renaro penciled in as your Southern Fried heavyweight champion 3 or 4 months ago?
No, Southern Fried. Look, they've got a solid group of champions. Sal Renaro, Hunter James Classic champions, the Crusade, Grillo, and Pat Roach as tag champions. By the way, they're multiple promotion tag team champions. Yeah. I think, look, Southern Honor, obviously, Joe Black, Kyle Matthews, Jake the Snake Legacy, the Infantry we talked about. Of course, Squared Circle, Apocalypse Pro Wrestling, call it what you will. Kristen Taylor's their Friday Night Live champion. Scott Mason's their top champion. T-Bolt and Savage lost those. It is now Stevie Ray Frost and the Unicorn, whatever, Unibeast Dexter. So that's kind of, there's look, with the turnbuckle shifting around, I'm not really sure how those titles look forever, for in the long term. Viral Pro, Drew Hood. By the way, they're in alphabetical order, folks. If you were asking, like, hey, how did we do this? It's easiest thing for me to do is alphabetical. But yeah, Drew Hood, Billy Brash. The tag team titles are kind of held up right now. Eric Academia, of course, Wrestle America, Fried Eddie's top guy, Anthony Andrews. And then, of course, Fried Eddie and CT Keys are your tag champions there. Look, by the way, if any of those are incorrect that we mentioned on the air, tappedoutpod@gmail.com, I do my best to maintain a spreadsheet that has all of those in there. By the way, if you had your per champions listed on the top of your social media, like I've asked, it would be a lot easier to do. I try to read the reports. If you sent reports every week, and I'd keep up as best I can. I do my best. I'm human. Forgive me if I've made an error there. Lots of promotions. And like you said, man, I really think that's kind of what we did this for, so we could start seeing the names. If you see the same names, multiple, that's when you start seeing, like, look, promotions matter. We get it. But if I see your name on a champions list 5 times,
yes,
whether it be tag team and a single individual, whatever, you can clearly see who the players are. And that's what this goal was for this sheet to try to, to accomplish.
Yes. And again, all you got to do, become a patron, patreon.com/tappedoutpod for $1 a month. You're going to get all these show notes. You're going to get everything we could not get to. And when you go out to Olive Garden with your friends, you're going to have more wrestling knowledge than all of them. Hey, did you know such and such was champion? Such, listen, and again, we're trying to keep up with all of this. I can't even mention, again, when you join Patreon, you get the Georgia Wrestling Spotlight every week. It's 8 pages of notes, 8 or 9 pages of notes on its own. And we will get to about half of that, maybe, Nick.
We do our best to highlight it. Again, that's why I look at when we talked about it, when I'm reaching out to the contacts at these promotions, I'm saying, hey, man, if you could do me a favor, get them to me by Monday night. 6 p.m. I'd really like that to be the deadline going forward. I'm going to put it in the messages for the next couple of weeks. The reason why it's so important, we have modified that down to like your A story, your B story, etc. It's because, man, it's what's selling tickets for your show. Yeah, you're going to give us the match results. We're going to have them on there. We don't have time to go through every single match. It can't happen. You tell us. By the way, wrestlers, this is a cold-blooded thing I'm about to do. When you're wondering why you're not getting the A and the B story, typically is what your promoter, your booker, or somebody on the show thinks is the A and B story. That's why, like, you'll get, when they mention you in and whatever, that's kind of how you get worked in a little more. But anyway, point being, it's so important to be Patreon. Even at that dollar level, you're going to get all of these notes. It's 9 pages. Georgia Wrestling Spotlight is 9 pages this week. We can't cover that in an hour. There's just absolutely no way. But we're going to cover all the highlights, and kind of thing. Again, that's why you should have those there.
Yes, it is. We are your one-stop shop for all of the top coverage of Georgia independent wrestling, we think. And on top of that, you got the Tapped Out show. What are you and Myron going to be talking about this week?
This week it's a top 10 episode. Change, because we told you every week we're going to go through some different type of, format on the rotation. It's going to be between the what ifs, the real wrestling episodes, the top 10 list. We're going to do some wild card stuff where we do some ultimate cards. There's a special coming up in a few weeks with the Ultimate WrestleMania card. But this week, we promos. We were really talking about, with John Cena coming back and all the discussion about how good there was a debate last week. I thought his promo was okay. I thought it was good. I didn't think it was great. By the way, teaser, I watched Raw last night. Gonna wash, rinse, repeat what I said. I think it was good. It wasn't great. His promo from last night. So top 10 promos of all time. That's going to be the thing this week. And of course, we'll throw in the notes of, there was a little, there's a talk about UFC and its future with Warner Brothers Discovery potentially. We're going to bring that up a little bit as far as when it comes to the news of the week. So absolutely make sure you're subscribing, on YouTube, on Patreon, whichever you do, YouTube, like, subscribe, turn the notifications on, all that good stuff. But of course, if you're a Patreon member, you get it all right there. It's, so that's one way to look at it.
Make sure if you are a patron, go on the Patreon app and you can thumbs up, you can leave comments. We read all those and just would love your feedback with the new formats and the new things we're covering. But the most important thing, fans, is to get out and support independent wrestling, to buy a ticket, put your butt in the seat, cheer and boo. And most importantly, maybe you look around, you see some handsome fellas, and we'll see you at the matches.